Of course.
We are nothing but professional. But I went ahead and swapped the screen. I'm not gonna have anything on the screen this time around because
Okay.
A, didn't have time to get anything together, and B, I can't be too flummoxed to ask right now.
That's
It's
fair.
it's fine.
It's fine.
It's 100% fine. I just gotta make sure that we look good across the board, and then we can kind of get started and whatnot. Which we're looking good.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, I forget if we had like an intro for this because it's been a long time since we've done this.
I don't know.
I don't think we did. I think we just kind of rambled. It was like, all right, we're doing this, and then it was like, you a therapist and
Mm-hmm.
all that. Yeah, we didn't. Yeah, because we didn't do anything too wild. It was just straight up, just like, hey, we're gonna talk D&D characters, and you're a therapist, so we're gonna get your input type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we can kind of start with I mean, the last time we did this, I was still a student therapist. This time that we're doing this, I'm an actual therapist. So
Yeah.
I've been officially licensed.
Yeah. So you actually have the credentials.
I have the credentials after my name.
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
you actually got the full on license, so it's all good.
I do.
Okay. Well, oh, I felt that coming. Um,
That sounded rough. You okay?
yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
That one less thing off the chest. All right. So obviously we kind of talk about that. We kind of talked about this, and then it was very much a case of like, oh, we'll do it, we won't do it, and so on and so forth. And then it's like we got busy, and then forgot, and then I was just like, then very much just like, oh, we could still do this, and then kind of turned into, okay, we're just doing this now. So, all right. But the idea behind all this obviously is talking about D&D characters that people have interacted with, and kind of the general idea of this anyway is for me as the DM having run players through like modules and stuff like that, and kind of discussing characters, whether it be uh, right now currently it's just like the BBEGs. So like obviously the first time we did this as again kind of a whim, kind of like, oh, we're gonna do this, was obviously Strad von Zarevich,
Mhm.
and there was many things said about him and conversations and feelings about him and so on and so forth. Obviously, kind of something to keep in mind with this too is obviously we are working off my canon and kind of my tweaks to this. So obviously, some of the story beats are going to remain generally the same from like official lore, but there might be some minor things that I've done to tweak it, and I will try my best to remember to point those out. So if anyone's confused and goes like, "Hey, wait a minute, this character isn't like this," it's 100% because again, this is my canon, and obviously it's not like I'm like changing absolutely every little thing about the character. It's just more of how do I make it to make sense for the story and to get people invested. But luckily with this next figure, this figure we're doing, I didn't have to really change too much. I just kind of ran the module as is, which
Mhm.
obviously the first like the actual VODs we actually did post, not like the Curse of Strahd one. I'm really sad I didn't post those on YouTube, but it is what it is. Because I think I have like the first like 5 episodes on my hard drive, but I would have to double check that. But
Mm.
but yeah, obviously, with that being said, and kind of given, the person we're going to be focusing in on today is the Archduke or Duke or Duchess or however you want to refer to it. Uh,
Ye-
the Archduchess of Avernus, also known as Zariel. And kind of as an added thing too, I figured not only to focus on her, but another character that kind of goes down a similar arc that you are very much familiar with. Because D&D has a knack for stories that involve like beings from the non-material plane, especially celestial beings, either falling or getting corrupted by the influences or the environments they are in. So I figured on top of talking about Zariel, we're going to also talk about, like, we're going to focus in on Zariel, but I think after we get done with Zariel, we can talk a little bit about another character that does something similar that you've interacted with.
Ooh.
And a
Okay.
bit of a spoiler for those. And I figured the second part of this that we can talk about once we run out of things with Zariel, because Zariel doesn't have too much lore, and the same thing with this
Mhm.
other character. I figure we can talk about the abbot.
Oh, oh yes, let's do that.
Yes, because something that both Zariel and the abbot have in common, obviously, is again spoilers for Curse of Strahd, and not so much spoilers for Descent into Avernus because most people are aware of Zariel's position. But I'm still, but obviously that's the general disclaimer for just the series entirely is spoiling modules because we have to talk about the people in order to understand the psychology and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Is yeah, but yeah, I figured first part we talk about Zariel, second part we talk about the Abbot of Saint Markovia or just the Abbot,
Mm-hmm.
because obviously they are both divine beings, each on different levels of ranking from the celestial tree that is the ranking of angels, which is in itself, in my opinion, a fucking mess because there are so many different kinds of angels. It's not even funny. Uh, Not to say that there isn't the same thing with like fiends, but like angels are almost just as complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Which obviously the abbot is a deva, which is a lower end angel that is usually more of a divine messenger to Zariel, who is a solar, which is quite. If I were to put it in the layman's terms for people that don't understand D&D very well, she is a solar, if I recall correctly, is almost the equivalent of like an archangel. Like, she's nothing to scoff at. She is a very
Mm-hmm.
potent, powerful celestial being.
She is. Yeah, she's very powerful.
Yeah,
Um, she would have beat her ass, honestly, so.
yeah. Which I know. I know. After that session, I got messages being like, "That's not how divine intervention works," and it's like, at the moment, that seemed cool, and that's the way I'm working it. Cause, fuck it.
Listen, I also just listen, I got too excited with my divine intervention, and I was just happy you let me do it, okay?
Yeah, yeah, it happens. But anyway, let me get the only comfortable music I can find that can fit. So, well, maybe not fit, but some
Mhm.
comfy music. Uh, oh, yeah. It's been a minute, but
Been
yeah,
a while.
been a while. So, yeah, we will start again. We'll start with Zariel, and I'll kind of
Hmm.
give the backdrop. And I think what makes it interesting that we're focusing in on celestial beings to begin with is the fact that celestial beings operate on a very different mindset than like obviously we do. Like we see
Hmm.
like because obviously the way that I run celestials is they obviously with them being divine beings and not so much knowable, kind of operate them on that. We focus on like a black and white with gray. They are more of like, I think, what is it? It's like orange blue or something like that. Like very like,
Yeah, I think you said orange blue.
yeah, orange blue mentality
Yeah.
where the ends, like, there is always a ends to justify the means type situation. Not everything is purely one coded thing. Like, they will get what they want. And I think that's what makes beings like Zariel and the Abbot interesting, is the fact that it's like you can explain to them at any point like what, because again, they don't understand, because they're not going to understand mortals. Zariel thinks she is doing what is best for the realms, and so does the abbot. But they go about it in different ways because of the environment that they are introduced in.
Mm-hmm.
That makes them so different. So, to kind of give, like, so the thing that makes it nice with Zariel is the fact that I didn't really change too much of her story. The only thing I changed is the lord she served, because canonically she is a Solar of the Morning Lord, which we've established canonically in my version of Faerun, that the Morning Lord was a newer entity.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that him having a Solar out of the gate made no sense to me. So instead of making her a Solar of the Morning Lord, I made her a Solar of Torm, because Torm ties very much more into El Terrell as a city and whatnot. So I figured that would make more sense. But anyway, if we want to talk about Zariel a little bit, we kind of have to give context for what's going on with her. And that was when she was a Solar pre-fall. And that ties heavily into one of the natural, well, not natural, but immaterial events going on in Dungeons and Dragons lore, which is the Blood War. So this ties directly back to the Archduke of the Duke of the Hell, Asmodeus. Because Asmodedi. But yeah, obviously, to make a long story short about the Blood War, Asmodeus descended down to fight off the denizens of this place known as the Abyss. As him and his angels fought in the Abyss, they got more and more corrupted, and then eventually the first spawning of devils came to be when Asmodeus and his angelic host basically fell to being lawful good to lawful evil, because the Abyss does some fucky shit. Eventually the celestial courts agreed to Asmodeus' presence, but Asmodeus demanded basically a location for him and his devils to have a base of operation. So that's how the Nine Hells are spawned. And that's kind of how the Blood War is. And I'm oversimplifying a lot of this just so we can get to how does this play into Zariel. Which, how it plays into Zariel is she was an angel that was tasked with watching the Blood Wars. She was a being that, again, potent, powerful, and a commander in her own right. It's one of those stories where it's the road to good and what is it? The
road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Exactly. Because again, like Zariel is a warrior, she's a fighter, and she's a bit headstrong. And obviously with angels being lawful good, they have to follow a strict set of rules, and obviously it's for the betterment of like the thing of the place. Well, unfortunately, Zariel, again, just being rather bullheaded, kind of ignored her orders and descended down into the material plane to gather a host. And with the backing of, and you know how that goes, with the backing of a host, like when you're just a random dude, and suddenly a powerful being just descends down and goes like, "Hey, I'm gonna train you how to fight, and we're gonna go fuck up some devils in the Blood War." Most people are gonna be like, "Yeah, no, this sounds right," you know, because when a powerful divine authority figure shows up, they're very much gonna be like, "What do you want us to do?"
Mm-hmm.
So she she gathers up these mortals, trains them, and gets them ready to march into Avernus. And once these soldiers were ready and trained, she opens up a gate to Avernus and begins a event known as the Ride, where her army and her descend into Avernus to begin fighting the Infernal Legions. The forces that she ended up clashing with was Bel's.
Mm-hmm.
And as suddenly getting charged by a bunch of mortals and a solar threw kind of Bel and his Infernal Legions off, but a mortal can only do so much against a devil. And
Yeah.
eventually, once everything kind of set in, her army eventually routs. Some are slain, some fight to the bitter end, but a good chunk of them retreat back into the portal. And those who retreated lived to fight another day and served as an integral part of the city that would become El Terrell. The survivors were known as the Hell Riders. And those who had survived the event knew of the shame of leaving Zariel and their brothers and sisters to die in the Nine Hells. Zariel, feeling betrayed by those she deemed she had trained and fought with, except for a few key figures in the Hell Riders that stuck around with her. Her lieutenants and an important follower by the name of Yale,
Mm-hmm.
who was the general of this host. Zariel loses not only her army, but she loses her hand. And before they were captured, Zariel demanded her General Yale to take the weapon and hide it, so they couldn't get a hold of her weapon, because this is the sword of a Solar. Like, even if Zariel were to be vanquished, it's a powerful weapon. So Yale does what she is instructed to do and absconds. Her important generals that stick behind her, Althanius and Harmon, stick with her side, to which they were all three of them were captured, and then they were sent to Nessus. To which... Nope. Oh. Thank you for the resub there, sis.
You're good, Tess.
Where Zariel was brought before Asmodeus. And yeah, to which Asmodeus basically convinced her to take over Avernus by commending her for her battle prowess and her strength. Kind of convincing her that she can get what she wants. She can continue to fight in the Blood War, do what Mount Celestial could not do, which is make an effort in the blood war, but instead of having the backings of angels or mortals, she would have the backing of devils. And again, the Lord of Lies, being a silver-tongued devil, convinces her to agree. And that is where she fell. That is where she becomes the Archduchess of Avernus. And even so far as her generals, one Harman accepted, but Othonius didn't wish to bow before Asmodeus. Game ended himself, basically. But Zariel, seeing his loyalty to him, brought him back as a Death Knight. And pretty much her revenge on those who betrayed her was to find a way to get back at Elturel. And the events of Elturel being attacked by undead was the perfect gateway for her, where she promised help in a deal to one Thavius Krieg, offered him the companion in exchange for a unspecified deal later on. And that is kind of where the module kind of begins again, years later, when Zariel would make call for that promise. So it's interesting with the fall of Zariel and just Zariel's mentality is obviously, like, again, she does her absolute damnedest to follow the rules, but it's also one of those where Zariel, to me, kind of comes off as one of those people. It's like she's like I said, like, bullheaded is the best way to put it. She comes off as a very bullheaded creature where it's like, I know what is right. This is what we need to get done, but she's being held back by the very immaterial laws that bind the alignments of those who are lawful.
Mm-hmm.
I know it makes it more difficult with Zariel versus, like, Strahd, because you guys had more chances to interact with Strahd and kind of see how he deals with things. With Zariel, it's very difficult because the only real interaction your party ever had with her was literally when she was caving in the head of the fighter.
Yeah. She kind of beat the shit out of the fighter.
Yeah. But from, like, I guess my question to you is, like, from what you've gathered and from what, I guess, if you were in the situation of your character who, like, heard these stories of Zariel and kind of just also kind of having the more context of what happened to Zariel, what would you kind of, like, it's kind of hard to give an exact, like, feeling about Zariel, I guess, because it's one of those where, again, we're dealing with a being that operates on a different morality code. So I guess the question would be, if we were to humanize her and give her a more human thought process, what would you kind of feel would be the best aptitude to give Zariel?
I think one of the big things is Zariel comes across as someone who is not just going to take people at their word. So, for example, with us trying to convince her that, things are not going to go the way that she thinks, she's very adamant that no, like, this is what I was told, this is what's going to happen and everything. So she's very stubborn, bullheaded, like you said. I think there's also a fear of being wrong. about what she's doing. You know, there's like that underlying fear where she's like, okay, well, if I'm not doing what I came down here to, kind of helping with the blood wars and all that kind of stuff, then like what is my purpose in a sense?
Mm. Yeah, like, because the funny thing is, the thing I find very funny about, like, because the thing we have to remember with D&D, and especially with the way its cosmology works, is celestial and demonic are kind of two sides of the same coin, just on different ends of the spectrum. Like, angels angels and celestial beings are quintessentially just good aligned devils because they're both lawful, but
Hmm.
one is on the good end of the spectrum, you know, like sunshine, rainbows, and happiness, while the other is
Yeah.
more domination, control, and
Hmm.
bad things. Because the thing we have to remember with like alignment, especially lawful good and lawful evil, is the codes that bind both alignments is purely based on a cosmological level of what
Hmm.
is deemed good and evil, which Zariel's bloodlust for battle, as well as dealing with what's going on in the Nine Hells, is could probably be the same feeling that is felt by some of the other beings that reside in the Nine Hells for, say, Mount Celestia. But the only
Hmm.
difference is we view like angels cosmetology like cosmically are what is considered good, while devils are obviously considered evil due to corruption.
Yeah. And I think that's something as well that kind of plays into a bit of bias around that, you know? So like um we like basically people on the material plane are taught to believe that like okay, angels equals good, devils equals bad. And it seems that this is something that's kind of plays into a bias. So like people hear about Zariel and they're like, okay, well she's fallen, so she's bad. And I feel like it's probably the reverse perspective if you're someone that say grew up more so with like maybe the demons and the devils and you see them as good and you see the angels as bad. So that kind of that shift in perspective.
With our contract with Asmodeus, do you think there would ever be a possibility for an alignment change, such as a feature for PCs in the campaign? Well, I mean, that's kind of the point of the Descent into Avernus module, is you are deciding if Zariel breaks out of that funk or not. Because Zariel is 100% committed to the bit
Hmm.
until you put the mirror to her face and basically kind of go, is this worth it? Is this what
Yeah.
you actually want? Because, again, the thing that makes Asmodeus's contract so devious is how simple it is. Because celestial beings do not have souls. Not in the sense that we understand them. Like, celestial beings are made of just. In a weird way to describe it, celestial beings are kind of like elementals, where they are made out of magic that is aligned to whatever alignment they are. So obviously, like, you kill a deva, it doesn't have a soul to reform; it has a body to reform because it is a purely magical being. And that's the same thing with devils in the Nine Hells. That's why they are terrified to get killed in the Nine Hells, because that is their home plane, and if you kill something in its home plane, that's it. That is oblivion. There's no soul, there's no afterlife for them to go to. They are dead. And when Zariel falls and becomes the Archduchess, that's the same thing with her. If she dies in Avernus, she is dead. Like, there's no resurrection, no body reconstruction, nothing. She is gone.
Hmm.
So that is kind of the whole point of Descent into Avernus, is you're not only saving a city, but you are contributing to a cosmic level event where you decide on the fate of a powerful celestial being. Does she get redeemed? Does she realize what she is doing is too far? Or does she stay the course and continue what she is doing? So, so to answer your question, no. But that is what the module is about. So, no, if we're talking from a purely story sense, unless there is a story that comes out that specifically does the same hero's journey, but that's not the same as having us, the players, and the DM interacting with the world that is being presented.
So I know you've said this before just in general, and like you have an issue with the alignment. Because here's the thing, just because you are of a certain alignment, it doesn't mean that your character has to constantly be that way. It's just a lot of times it's kind of based on the background that they have that you would consider. So like um I'll use Ophelia as an example. Ophelia is lawful evil.
Mm-hmm.
Or made her neutral evil, whatever she is. But anyways, her alignment is evil, and that's solely because of the environment and everything that she grew up. Does that make her an evil person? To some people, yes. To other people, no. So like it's a matter of perspective, you know. So that's the thing. Do people consider Zariel evil based on what she's done, the fact that she's falling, or do they consider good because she's still trying to do what she went down to Avernus for, which is fight in the Blood Wars?
Yeah, and again, I am very much of the DM belief that alignment is a spectrum of what you can do. Like, when you put on your character sheet that you are that alignment, that is a manuscript of the way your character would act. It doesn't 100%. Like, not everyone's going to be a chaotic neutral, chaotic evil bastard their whole damn lives. Like, people fluctuate. And what makes alignment for because that's the thing we have to consider with divine beings such as devils and angels that make it more complicated, is the fact that Zariel, in her mind, like, is doing the right thing. The ends justify the means. And being a lawful evil creature, she's doing the devil's game, where she is offering, she's not forcing, because that's the key thing with devil contracts, because devil contracts do not work if you are forced to do it. You have to consent to it. And that's the thing that Zariel is doing. She is not forcing anyone. She is presenting. In exchange, she gets something in return. Obviously, that's the cat. It's kind of like a monkey paw situation where you're getting what you want, but you're not. But you're also getting the consequences that come with it. And Zariel's actions in her mind is justified because, again, like, it's war. She is going to. She's there to win. She's not there to, you know, play nice and civil. She tried that. Like, the village that got attacked by a Nogu. That did not work out with her being nice and friendly. She lost a lot of people that had not only faith in her god, but in her. And that's one of the steps that pushed her towards the mindset of the ends justify the means. Because, again, that village that the party experiences in Descent into Avernus is an example and one of the first steps she took to break away from Mount Celestia's rules and go and try to solve the Blood War by herself. Because when you have incursions like that and beings not willing to do anything because it would upset the balance, because that's the key thing with Celestials and Devils, is there is a fine balance, cosmic balance that they have to keep up. And a bit into which kind of cuts back a little bit into the backstory, which I forgot to cover, but the reason why devils are able to operate the way they are is because funny enough, kind of tie. This will tie back to Zariel, I promise. Uh, so when Asmodeus was doing the thing he was doing and realized, hey, I need more soldiers, so I need more souls and stuff like that, and he started doing the shit he was doing, that's when the Celestials were kind of like, nah, you're not allowed to have souls. What the fuck are you doing? So they actually had a cosmic court. Like, Asmodeus actually went to court. And they went to Machina, which Primus, the neutral god, acted as judge. And an interesting fact that doesn't get brought up, but if you read the court case, there were plenty of celestial beings that try to argue against what Asmodeus was doing. And you want to know one of and eventually it got to the point where Primus was like, okay, you all can't gang up on Asmodeus. To make this fair, you need to select someone that speaks for you. And you want to know who that person that spoke against him was?
Zariel.
It was Zariel.
Ooh, called it.
Yep. So she was
I
the
win
one
for my prize.
So
Who do I win?
I'll figure something out.
Okay.
But yeah, so Zariel was chosen, and she gave her argumentations for why devils shouldn't be doing what they're doing. But eventually, it got to the point where Primus decided that the Primeval Pact, which is a contract that is celestial law, says that devils can continue to operate so long as they are not forcing anyone to their position, basically. And to show that there is approval by not only Primus but the celestial courts, Asmodeus was given a special item to show his authority to uphold the Primeval contract, which is his infamous red ruby rod.
Spicy.
Yes, so that's another connection to Zariel having to Asmodeus. But that, again, like, the way, I think that kind of goes back again to the psychology of Zariel a little bit, because it's like, again, like, at what point does wanting to destroy anything that is evil become an unhealthy obsession? Because to me, another thing that makes Zariel interesting is, like, again, the whole the end justifies the means mentality that you can have with her, but also it's like, where do you draw the line? Because Zariel is a very bullheaded woman. She knows what she wants to do, and she knows that she should get it done. But I guess my question, to turn this into a question,
Mm-hmm.
at what point do you think it becomes like an unhealthy mindset or a sickness? I would argue it's almost a sickness, where it's like that's kind of the nature of a good aligned being, where they have to inherently view almost this level of contempt of evil to the point of potentially performing what we could view as evil acts themselves.
So,
Like,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So, within kind of the way that we conceptualize, I'm going to use this as comparison because this will probably get it across easier. So, the way that you conceptualize when your anxiety is more than just anxiety is when it starts impacting your everyday life. So basically, kind of one way that's looked at for mental illnesses is kind of, is this disrupting your everyday function? So we can apply that to kind of the obsession with the evil. Is this obsession with destroying everything that's evil disrupting Zariel's daily function? Which, based on what she's done and everything that's led her to her eventual contract with Asmodeus, I would say yes. that it's disrupted her to the point that this is the only thing that she can focus on. And then vice versa, when she's fighting in the Blood Wars, it's the same thing. This is her obsession and kind of the fact that it's impacting her to not see reason for other views. It's causing her to have that tunnel vision for a lot of things.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those where it makes it kind of difficult again to like say for sure like what entirely goes on to her head, because again, like, we're dealing with a being that view things differently than we do, but also it's the
Mhm.
fact that it's like, and obviously, as since we are not divine celestial beings, we have to interpret that game mechanic wise into what we think she's going to do
Mhm.
and what she
Yeah.
thinks. But I think that's what makes, like, I will admit, at first when I looked into the module, I didn't really care for Zariel.
Mhm.
But the more like I've like kind of read, kind of as we kind of went on with the module, and the more I read, and the more I've kind of seen how certain people portray Zariel, it's kind of interesting to see like she I will admit has become a more fascinating character.
Mhm.
I still think Strahd is the most interesting character, but like
Mhm.
I think Zariel had I think Zariel is interesting in the regards of like she she didn't she fell not only because of like her hubris or anything, but she fell because she was trying to do what was right in her mind.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and unfortunate and an unfortunate fact of life is you could be the best person you can be, you can try what you can, and it still ends up in a shit situation. And that's an argument for Zariel is she truly like in a shitty situation, or is this something that she wants? Because she
Mhm.
seems content and happy with what she wants, but the fact that she has a chance to turn back to good with the
Mhm.
presentation of the sword and a convincing enough argument and tongue, as well as her friend Lulu,
Mhm.
tells me that deep down inside, what she knows she's doing something wrong.
Mhm.
And the fact that there is that subliminal level of guilt in her consciousness tells me that the reason why she's so focused on the blood war and so focused on trying to succeed is this is a self-justification thing where she is
Mhm.
trying to justify to herself what she is doing is correct.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's an interesting angle with her that can be ran
Mhm.
where again she's a confident powerful being, but there's doubt.
Yeah. The other thing with her is I would argue actually that she's not as confident as she appears. Simply for the fact that she can be swayed from one side or to another. So a lot of times if you're a self-assured person and like people give their opinion on something or they show something, you can take it into consideration, but it's not going to completely change the way you think. So like Zariel twice has been kind of swayed to change her thinking. She was once with Change to Asmodeus, and then once again in the campaign when Savine managed to convince her, or Savine and Leviatar managed to convince her to, basically switch again. So, like, there's a level of insecurity there in which, and kind of an easy way to manipulate, which is not a good thing for anybody. but more so probably a divine being. She's somewhat easily to manipulate, so it's kind of like, yeah, we got her back this time, but who's to say X number of years down the road, Asmodeus comes back and manages to get her to switch again.
Yeah. Which, again, who knows? That may be a future, like, plot hook. I feel. I don't know. I feel like, in my opinion at least, and at least my headcanon, she's not going to fall for that trick again. She's not going to fall for the pleasantries again, because I think she would realize that he's using her.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, I could be completely wrong here. Someone could have a completely different headcanon and be like, actually, no, Asmodeus would be able to, trick her again. And who's to say?
I mean, I would say, given the way that you portray Asmodeus and kind of the headcanon that we have in our combined D&D world, because I'm using the same Asmodeus headcanon that you are, I would say there's a chance, very small chance though, that he would be able to kind of somehow lure her back in.
Yeah, like, maybe he would have to set... I feel like it would have to be, like, a situation even worse than what she originally was in. Like,
Yeah.
and even then, it would be a very hard convincing.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I'm trying, and I guess that also goes back to, and it's interesting too, because another point about Zariel, both, like, even when she is fallen too, because another point I would like to point out too is, her attitude doesn't necessarily change for those who she considered close. She, like, for instance, like, the big ones you guys got to kind of interact and see with was Lulu. Because, again, if she had truly fallen, she would have had no hesitation killing Lulu. Because Lulu is, again, a divinely good being because she is a Hollyphant.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she would have had no hesitation in trying to kill her, but she doesn't. As mechanically speaking, Lulu lowers the DC to convince her to go to switch alignments.
Mm-hmm.
So, to me at least, and again, like, I know a lot of this is just speculation of a fictional character, and we might read too much into this, but that's kind of the fucking point.
Mm-hmm.
To me, there's still that, again, that goes back to that whole, in the back of her head, she knows what she is doing is wrong. And having a being like Lulu, who is her closest companion, tell her what she's doing is wrong, says something. Like,
Yeah.
she still has her connections. Like, quite quite literal and quite... Like, literal connection, obviously, via the Sword of Zariel, but quite literal emotional connection via Lulu, and even the Hellriders that she brings back, because a thing that you guys didn't really get to do in the campaign, and I'm more than willing to talk about, is you can interact with the fallen Hellriders and her lieutenants. And if you would have brought certain lieutenants with her, like, I think what was it? It was the Death Knight character.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can convince him to help lower the DC too.
Mm-hmm.
Because he would have. Because he's very much loyal to Zariel, but he's loyal to the good part of her. He's not loyal. Mm-hmm. He's not fighting Zariel because he wants to as a Death Knight. He's fighting because he's commanded to. But there is a part of him that... Because I'll read it specifically what it says. Because, again, this goes back to, I think, what Zariel... Because, again, it goes back to Zariel, like, still having the feelings that she had before she fell. Because it says specifically on here, if you make an ally of Othanius, he kneels before Zariel, and she feels shame for leaving
Mm.
her loyal friend to a horrific fate. That is not becoming of a. That is not becoming of a. Of someone that has ultimately fully fallen. She
Yeah.
cares about people that she considers loyal and important in her past life. So, to me, that's why we're able to. That's why the party is able to redeem her, because she is. It talks about her falling, but in my opinion, she has not fallen. She's gotten herself into a rut, and this is the push to make sure that she either fully commits or she pulls out.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say she's not, because if we're gonna compare to, we'll just throw this comparison in since we're gonna be talking about him anyways. If we compare her to the abbot, I would argue that the abbot has fully fallen at
Yes.
this point. So Zariel is kind of on the cusp because she does still care about, like you said, she cares about Lulu, she cares about her generals and her lieutenants and all that. Whereas the abbot doesn't care about anyone. He's kind of the mindset like, oh, if you friend and I have to hurt you to get what I want, then that's okay. Which I think is kind of a distinction. I think that's a distinction that should be made between someone who's fallen versus partly fallen. Is
Right.
kind of how far are you willing to go if that means harming people who you used to care about.
Exactly. Because again, in my opinion, if she truly has fallen, and if she is truly she is lost, if she is lost in the sauce, basically,
Mhm.
any defiance and anything that would have been like, I don't like that, she would go out and destroy. But she doesn't do that for Lulu. And
Mhm.
if you recruit Orthanus, or however you say his name, because I'm going to say it like 20 different times,
Mhm.
and he kneels in front of her, because ultimately, if he is with the party, he is, in a sense, betrayed her because he is aligned with the party.
Yeah.
But rather than smiting him, which obviously some DMs might do that, where it's just like if the party fails to convince her and she just fucking smites him, which is fine.
Mhm.
But if we're reading it as it's written, she feels shame and she doesn't. The only thing she does is the moment she is redeemed, she lets go of his soul, and when she does
Mhm.
that, his body turns to ash. Which,
Yeah.
again, perfect.
Yeah, I would argue as well if she was fully fallen, she would not have given us as many chances to try and talk her down as we had.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, the first time it failed, then the fighter, Anna, got the shit beat out of her. Sorry, Tess. Then the second time around, trying to do something. I think it would have been like, especially with Nox's character, Vixara, having the sword, I feel like it would have been, okay, this person tried to convince me this person has the sword. I'm going to go for this person now and not really listen to any more reason.
Mm. Yeah, and yeah, it's just it's hard to say really, because again, like that's the thing with Zariel, the fact that there's not much written about her, and you basically have to go what is off the module and like what your feelings towards how she should act.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much a case of one of those where it's just like she could be played in so many different ways. And again, I know I said
Mm-hmm.
that about like Strahd, but like Zariel is more of an open-ended book. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that's I think maybe that's kind of where I see a lot of people liking Zariel as like an NPC is instead of having like a well established character that's very much like they are written this way, therefore you kind of have to play them this way. She's more of an
Mhm.
open book. Like
Yeah.
you could play her as the maniacal, like twirling mustache goes off to fight in the Blood Wars thing, or you could play her as this character that has lost their way, and it's up to your party to bring her back to the light or put her down.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the beauty of it because it's like this is the basic and then you can kind of take that and like you said you can either fully play into the yeah she's fallen she's committed to kind of being this lawful evil thing or do where it's more of like she's having a conflict within herself about what she's done even though she's doing it in her mind she's doing it because she wants to you know do what the celestial court wouldn't do with regards to the blood wars but
Mm-hmm.
still have that somewhat like human not well they're not humans but you know what I mean like that humanistic part where you have some sort of like regret and conflict within yourself about what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess again to kind of like because outside of this, is there? So I guess ultimately, what I would ask for you is like, if you had the chance to sit down with Zariel, like,
Hmm.
would would her profile kind of change? Do you think, like pre and post fall, like in terms of like what you would say is kind of up with her, or
Sorry, can you repeat that? I just someone texted me.
no, you're fine. No, you're fine. Like,
Yeah.
would so do you? I guess. Do you think she if you were to like kind of give her kind of like a profile based off like
Hmm.
pre and post fall and just everything that's presented, like what would you, I guess, kind of categorize her in a sense?
Mm, that's a difficult one, actually. I don't know if there's because we don't really have enough about her to properly categorize her. I would say that the best I can do is say that she has traits of certain things. So there's a bit of a trait of maybe there's definitely some self-esteem, self-confidence going on there. I would say there's also a bit of there's some narcissistic personality traits given the fact that she thinks she's like no one can do what I'm doing in this moment type thing and also just kind of a lot of fear and uncertainty. So if she was to kind of sit down in my chair and be like, I'm struggling if it was like the Zariel, let's use it the Zariel that's like conflicted. If it was this one that came in and sat down in my chair and said, I'm thing, but I'm not sure if this is the right way to do this or if this is like the correct thing to do what I want to do. I would definitely say there's kind of like self-doubt, and we would work on finding out if this is something that she is willingly doing of her own fruition and this is something that she believes in, or is it more influenced because she thinks this is what she has to do? So there would be a lot more like I would take a lot more time with her to kind of figure out the root of why she feels so strongly that this is the only path.
Hmm. Okay. Um. Yeah. So that being said, again, because we don't really have too much else with Zariel, and I don't
Hmm.
think, ju- like as much as I love like Lulu and everyone else, I don't
Hmm.
think they would be like they've said their piece and done their part in the story
Hmm.
for Zariel.
Yeah.
So I think it's safe to move on to the next part,
Yeah.
which is the abbot.
Hmm.
So to give context again, now that we've moved on to the abbot, and I like it. I like Baldur's Gate swap to the Last Light End,
Mhm.
where it's the more creepy music. That was good timing.
That was good timing, yeah.
The abbot. So like I said, with Curse of Strahd, I changed a lot
Mhm.
to make it more interesting, but also to kind of get rid of some of the elements I considered very problematic. And
Mhm.
that, and the thing, but few things changed about the abbot. And to kind of give you an idea of the abbot, is again, the abbot, like we established, is a deva.
Mhm.
He is, and something I changed with him as well, is he is a deva of Helm. Because one of the
Mhm.
things I find to be very interesting is if you have a celestial being in your games, one thing I recommend is if you
Mhm.
have a holy character or a character connected to a divine being, to tie the abbot into there. That way the abbot makes for more interesting interactions. So in this
Mhm.
case, with the party that we had a character by the name of Evangeline, whose mother was a deva, and she was searching for her in the midst of Barovia. For my game, I had the abbot know her mother and be a deva that came with her to Barovia. So he was a follower of Helm. And
Mhm.
what also adds that element to the abbot is the fact that it's like the abbot is very versed in whatever teachings he's from.
Mhm.
So he knows the rules and the tenets. And the thing is with the abbot is he is very much aware that there are forces at play in Barovia, and he is very fixated on Strahd von Zarovich because Strahd is the Dreadlord and he controls the land. In kind of a similar fashion to Zariel ignoring the Celestial Court and falling, the abbot falls because he is convinced if he makes Strahd happy, he is convinced he can deal with Strahd, the land of Barovia would be free. But he goes about it in a different way versus, like, Zariel, who's trained a legion and went to the Hells to go beat people up.
Mhm.
Instead, he tries to do the thing. He takes a more practical medical approach and goes, if I make him a wife, because that's what Strahd yearns for, he yearns for love. So if I make him the perfect woman, then this might be the chances of him being free. And if he's
Mhm.
freed, Barovia is freed. However, the thing is, with anything involving Ravenloft, we have to consider a third factor:
Yeah.
the Dark Powers. And the Dark Powers, for those who aren't aware, are beings, malign beings in Ravenloft that act as the jailers for each of the Dreadlords like Strahd. The the Dark Powers can be, for DMs, the Dark Powers can be whatever you want them to be. They could just be a group of faceless entities, kind of like a shadow council, or they could be being so primordial and so powerful that they just do not have a name because assigning a name to them is impractical.
Mhm.
Or they are simply cosmic jailers, because that is the main purpose of the Dark Powers, is to take beings that are so vile and twisted or have done something so profane and lock them up in a realm of their own making. What is interesting in the case of the abbot is the Dark Powers fuck with him. Like, you would think, oh, rehabilitation. No, the Dark Powers fuck with him. And when he begins healing those in Barovia, instead of healing their ailments like normally they would, his healing magic is twisted. his
Mhm.
healing magic, instead of like, if say someone lost a limb and he tried to heal it, that limb might be replaced with like webbed feet. Or
Mhm.
if he's fixing a laceration, that skin might be covered in hair or scales. Like, the dark powers and the beings that they are fuck with the abbot. And what makes it worse is Strahd is aware of the abbot and does nothing.
Mhm.
Because he is aware that the land itself will corrupt the abbot. And he is correct. Because we see this orange-blue mentality come into play with the abbot, where originally he was doing what was right, but gets twisted.
Mhm.
He tries to find the perfect woman for Strahd, but rather than just looking for the incarnations of Tatiana, he decides to build a perfect woman. He takes body parts and begins constructing in his mind what is the perfect human woman.
Mhm.
And Strahd is aware and does not stop him. And it turns to this obsession. And what is interesting about having an orange blue mentality in Ravenloft, in my opinion, is he knows he's doing something fucked up. Like,
Mhm.
let's be clear, the abbot is aware of what he is doing, but he takes the ends justifies the means logic to the ninth degree.
Mhm.
He is aware what he is doing is bad, but his morality is so twisted by this point by the presence of the Shadowfell and the machinations of the dark powers that he just needs one more body. He just needs
Mhm.
a few more bodies and he will get it perfect. And what's messed up is he will never get it perfect. But this madness that has consumed him will not let him see it.
Mhm.
And it's and again, I just like, cuz I guess from your perspective, like, would the fact that these cosmic beings messing with a being like this, like twisting his intentions, would that be some sort of like, would you kind of categorize it as kind of like a form of like emotional abuse or anything along those lines, or just what what do you think would, from like a, if you heard like what if the abbot was sitting in front of you and kind of telling you like, I'm doing this to justify it, but you know that it's from it's these toxic beings that are convincing him that this is the right plan. Like, what do you think the what do you think that kind of conversation or that kind of checklist would look like?
Um, I think it would definitely fall under some form of kind of manipulation, abuse, possibly, given kind of they've influenced him to not see reason, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of, in his mind, excuse me, he's doing this because he's convinced at this point, like, yes, this is my idea, this is what I'm doing. And he's kind of disassociated from the fact that this was something indirectly forced upon him by these dark powers.
Hmm.
And Strahd is an accomplice. Like, at this point, because Strahd is aware of the influence dark powers has and the fact that he has not warned what was a holy person, a holy being, hey, you can become corrupt if you spend too long here. Strahd is complicit in this form of kind of manipulation that's going on with the abbot.
Which to me also kind of peeks into another part of Strahd, because Strahd is very much the corrupter kind of Like, that's
Mhm.
another aspect of Strahd where he's absolutely the corrupter, like, because he finds pleasure in people debasing themselves like this. Because it's entertainment for him. Because
Mhm.
he's a twisted being.
Yeah. But this is kind of like it's a cycle that's perpetuated. So like the dark powers twisted Strahd when he was after he made his deal with Vampire. Sorry. No. The dark powers and Vampire corrupted Strahd. Turned him into the being that he is. Strahd continues to corrupt people who come into his domain, whether he takes them as spawn, like brides or consorts. That's a better term because we have Escher. Or whether he he torments Irina relentlessly throughout it. He's letting the abbot do this thing that he knows he's not going to accept this corpse bride, as I referred to her throughout the campaign, because it's not the person that he actually wants.
Poor
But he's not
Fasuka.
doing anything to kind of stop that, or prevent it from happening.
Yeah, and it's like, and that's the thing. It's like, Fasuka didn't ask to be made. This is a vanity project by a being that quite literally has fallen. Because at what point? I guess that would be my other question. Is at what point when you're doing something that is inherently good, trying to heal people and trying to solve problems, and you realize that you're probably causing more harm, but you still keep doing that. Like, is it. Would you consider that kind of like almost. Would that be considered almost kind of a selfish thing, or would it just be more like. Do you think there might be some sort of like fall gap, like a being like the abbot might be falling into? Like, I know he keeps bringing up the ends justify the means, but do you think there might be another like fall gap reason in a being's mind that like that's like I'm helping, even though this is clearly causing more problems, I'm still helping. Because
Mm,
let's be clear, because the people he has healed, he still locks up in the abbey because he
yeah.
knows that they would be a problem, but they're not happy. Not all of them are happy to be there.
Yeah. I think that's a bit more, it's a yes and no.
Hmm.
So like yes in the fact that so you're asking like what was the question again? It's kind of convoluted, hon.
Like pretty much like it was pretty much I was asking like at do what kind of mindset do you think someone would have seeing what they like if they're doing something good like healing people
Mhm.
and doing all this at what kind of mindset do you have to see that what you're doing is might look good at first but is hurting people but you still do it anyway because in your head it's a self-justification of I'm right.
Mhm. Um I would say that again it's a yes or no. It's a yes and no. It's a complicated
Yeah.
answer. It's a complicated question which gets complicated answer. So like you're aware that he is aware that what he's doing is causing harm. He's not letting them return to Chris because he's aware that like if he goes out there, they're gonna be like, oh my god, what the fuck happened to you? You're a freak, as Evangeline called them, freaks. However, he's so far into this mindset that he's still healing. He's so far deep in kind of this belief he has now that I think even if he wanted to stop, I don't think he physically could.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's because one thing that makes it difficult too is because looking at his paragraph for role playing him, he it's specific two sentences to bring to mind is the first sentence that says is he believes he is righteous, and
Mhm.
And the beginning part of his sentence, and the beginning part of the second little paragraph, which is the abbot shares his beliefs openly, claiming his decisions are based on divine guidance. In this case, it would
Mm-hmm.
be, for me, it would be Helm. In the module, it says the Morning Lord's guidance, but I would say Helm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, like, what, I guess, what would be a good way to kind of like, because there is a degree of, yeah, because he's a self-righteous person that believes he is getting a divine calling and guidance from others. Like,
Mm-hmm.
to me, that screams like, not so much a delusion, but like, what do you think there's like a better way to kind of, if there's a way to kind of like just, is there like a term or anything you would use kind of for this? Because it's like, you have basically a self-righteous holy man that believes his
Mm-hmm.
God is guiding him in his actions. Like, to me, that sounds like a very dangerous mindset to have, especially someone that is obsessing over
Mm-hmm.
a being like Strahd.
It's a very fanatical mindset. It's kind of, it falls into the realm of a bit of like, I don't want to say psychosis, but kind of some of the features of like when people are having like a psychotic break or something, it comes down to, you're fanatical in your belief. Not psychotic break. Let's not use that. If you think about cults, let's
Mm-hmm.
think about it from a cult perspective. If you think about cults, the thing about cults is that they believe their beliefs are right, and they are very like the fanatical die hard beliefs in the system
Mm-hmm.
of what they're being fed. So like this is comes back to what I said about Zariel. This idea that he had has now become a problem because it is impacting his ability to function normally and be able to think rationally about what he's actually doing. So
Mm.
the fanaticism ties into kind of it's disrupting. It's distressing. And he probably doesn't even realize that it's distressing him at this point because he's in so deep.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're in a cult, you're in so deep you don't realize that a lot of the stuff that you do or talk about or is being told to you is not correct.
Right. And it just, yeah, because again, he gives off very much like again, it kind of, and again, like, he's a righteous man that believes what he is doing is correct. So it's like it makes it hard because if
Mhm.
he's believing that the Morning Lord or Helm or whatever god you designate him is telling him what he is doing is right, but is,
Mhm.
and again, this is outer meta knowledge of just the fact that the Dark Lords and just the presence of Barovia itself has twisted his intentions.
Mhm.
It, to me, at least, this seems like something that like was always inside of the abbot, but just kind of twisted. Because again, it's because I feel like Ravenloft very much is like a monkey's paw situation where it's like you get what
Mhm.
you want, but there's unintended consequences, or it takes what you're trying to do and twist it.
Yeah.
And it,
I think with any sort of I'm going to be very careful how I word this next part. With any sort of kind of religion, whether it's you follow Helm, you follow Seluna, you follow Shar, you follow the Raven Queen, there are people that are going to be within these factions that take what their god, their goddess says as this is the only way that I can think. So you get the people who are very committed, which is good. Every god, goddess needs like committed followers. They continue. That's why, Evening Glory fizzled out technically because she didn't have that.
mm-hmm.
That in itself is dangerous just in general without the corruption from the dark powers. Because if you're a follower, we'll use obviously common ones, we'll use Shar and Seluna. If you're a follower of Seluna, you've learned that Shar is Seluna's enemy. And if you're a devout follower of Seluna, then you're going to be like, well, any Shar that I see, it's on site. Because you are my mortal enemy and I'm not going to hear you out.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's because it's a level of fanaticism, I think, that like it's interesting because it shows up in a lot of the celestial characters, especially the ones in like the modules like
Mhm.
Zariel and the Abbot, which is why I find them kind of an interesting paired mix in together because they're both
Mhm.
divine beings that, to a degree, believe what they are doing is right, but whether it's environment or just circumstance, twist their intentions.
Mhm. Well, take a look at we'll use kind of take a look at Shadowheart, for example, from Baldur's Gate 3.
Yep.
She grows up believing that her ideas for Shar is kind of like the end all be all. And you see how she interacts with like the Saluna shrine off the Owlbear cave. You see how she interacts with Isabel, who's a
Mm-hmm.
cleric of Saluna. And it's not until she's faced with someone, a divine being, obviously Aelin, who can give her kind of more insight than what she ever got through Shar's teaching, does she start to actually be like, hang on, there might be something here. So the abbot, he might have read something from Helm and he might be twisting that to be like, okay, well, this is what Helm is saying that I have to do. Or the Morning Lord or whoever you have him follow when you run across Strahd.
Yeah, and it makes for him to be a very fascinating character. Like depending on how you want to play him, like most DMs I know that have talked about the abbot and whatnot make him a very creepy and unnerving character. Like he's
Really? Can't relate to that experience.
yeah, and that's just yeah, and that's just it. Where it's just like again, because this is someone that is clearly fallen, and it's just he's doing his best, and
Hmm.
unfortunately, his best sometimes leads to not so pleasant situations.
Yeah, exactly.
But um, yeah, if you yeah, because and the unfortunate thing is like with all this said and done, he ultimately makes the flesh golem Fasilka,
Hmm.
which again, Fasilka is a being that is stitched together by different parts from arguably dead people
Hmm.
and is taught by the abbot how to act like a courtly lady.
Hmm.
And the sad part about it all is Fasilka might be perfect in acting like a courtly lady, but she is a flesh golem. She is
Yeah.
only going to be taught what she's taught. So, unfortunately, the sad part about the abbot's plan is just it will fail because Fasilka will act like she can act like a
Thanks for the
court.
hydrate.
Yeah, thanks for the hydrate. She will act like a courtly noble lady, but
Hmm.
outside of that, that's all she knows how to do.
Hmm.
And like it's sad because not only has the abbot affected those that he has tried to help,
Hmm.
but he's also created a being that I would argue should not or didn't want to exist.
Yeah.
And ultimately, depending on how the campaign goes, whether you facilitate the abbot's madness or simply let time pass, Vasilka will meet Strahd. And
Hmm.
Strahd will destroy Vasilka and look at the abbot and just say, it's not enough. And the abbot, rather than getting upset, will nod and he will do it all over again.
Hmm.
And that, to me, speaks a level of madness and disconnect that is very hard to
Mhm.
reconcile. Like,
Yeah.
at that point, would I think it would be safe to say that the abbot is so self righteous and everything, it's to the point where he is disconnected even from his own morality, I would think.
Mhm.
Like, he can justify all he wants, but, like, would he still do it if he knew at the end of the day it was all for naught? Because who's
Mhm.
the because we don't know for sure if this is the first time that the abbot has done this. If he has made multiple flesh golems and Strahd just destroys them to just see how much further the abbot will push it.
Mhm.
We do not know. And it just, yeah, it's just, it's tragic. And I guess my question to you also would be like, what do you think? Consider if do you think that there would be a way to help the abbot at this point, or do you think he's far too gone?
Uh, I would say he's far too gone at this point
Yeah,
because we tried.
yeah.
We tried to help him see reason, and he was just not willing to listen. So that's the difference between him and Zariel. Is Zariel, because she's not completely given into kind of like the darkness and everything from being in hell, we had the chance to reason with her. The abbot, because we've tried, like if we look at our interactions with, like, hey, we brought this person's face for you, even though it wasn't the person's face, but that's beside the point. Or like, hey, we brought this person's face. Now we need you to hold up your end of the deal. And he basically kept, like, what's the fucking word I'm looking for?
kept win-
What's the word? D-
kept whinging,
no, he kept,
backtracking,
no, not backtracking. Deflecting. That's what I want. He
deflecting.
kept deflecting.
There you go.
It took a moment for my brain to get there. He kept deflecting anytime we'd be like, okay, so are you gonna help Evangeline's mom? Are you gonna help Evangeline's mom? He kept deflecting because he is to the point. This is why I say he's not. That's is why I'm saying that, like, um, this is why I'm saying he's beyond saving. He kept deflecting, and no matter how many times we kept trying to get him, even having Esmeralda do a persuasion check on him, he was still so focused on, okay, I've got the face, I need to finish this thing. And at that point he was like, fuck Evangeline's mom, like, I don't care if she survives. At this point I have what I need to make Strahd happy to free Barovia.
Mm. Yeah. Um. So I guess again, kind of similar to Zariel, like if you were to give the abbot a profile, like what do you think would be? What would you give? Like, what would you kind of have down for him?
Hmm. mm. hmm 1 second.
No, you're good.
um For his profile, I would say he's got, trying to think of what I would do. He's definitely got the fanaticism and the obsession. I would say he's probably falling into the obsessive category.
Mm-hmm.
I would say also, kind of given what he went through in Barovia with the corruption and everything, it's influenced by the traumatic whether, the traumatic influence from the dark powers and from Strahd. And also the fact that, like, Strahd indirectly, because he's like, oh yeah, I'll take a ride, he's feeding into this fanaticism. So he's being reinforced that what he's doing is a good thing. So for him, I would say he's leaning on the obsessive. And I would say as well that there's a drive for approval and acceptance that he wants to get from Strahd.
Mm.
Again, I wouldn't say for him, like I said for Zara, there's a bit of fear. I say for him, there's no fear there because, like you said, he'd just be like, oh, okay, he didn't like this. Let me read him again. For him, it would be about getting him to understand that he's not helping anyone. He's hurting people. And that would take a lot of work to get him to that point.
I definitely think the first step would be getting him out of Ravenloft.
Well, dull, but like he's dead and he's in the Nine Hells right now, so that doesn't help.
Yeah. In our canon, obviously. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But yeah, I think that's all I got for the most part. Again, like the thing with Zariel and the Abbot is there's not too much on them. It's just kind of whatever it had, and just kind of a small little like chat together. I figured since they're both kind of not having too much is a little bit kind of vague, but like there's not enough like canonical like lore that's like we can work off this. Plus, it's not a whole bunch of stuff that I had in the modules that we.
Hey, Nightmare.
Hey, Nightmare. Yeah, and it's one of those where it's like I don't think I really had too much else for this, because it's like Zariel and the Abbot have a lot going on, but like lore wise, that's really all we can like extrapolate in terms of like what they would be like as individuals, because it's hard enough to do a being that was once human and has lost emotion, but but two entities that have never been human. They are divine celestial beings that operate on a different morality sense that is then translated into a morality sense that we can understand. Makes it very difficult to just simply be like, oh, they'll be like this and this.
Yeah.
And that is the thing with it, is the fact that they could be interpreted in any other way. And it's like we said with Zariel, and the same thing with the Abbot. Like, the Abbot could just be a fallen character, but like we're also kind of basing it off the way I ran him too. And let's be real, he was a fucking weirdo.
Yeah, he was a weirdo. I want to ask you a question though.
Yeah.
Kind of, this feeds into the current campaign that we're doing. What do you think the impact would be on a being like the Abbot being stuck in the Nine Hells for 200 years?
I mean, it would be the same thing as like Zariel. Like, there would be physical changes, probably a bit of the mentality being involved as well. Like, because again, like the one thing about outer plane being like the outer planes is they are magical by nature, so their influences will affect beings even if they're in there for a short period of time. Like a prime example of that would be the Beastlands, which the Beastlands, like is implied, is an entire realm mostly of animal. Like, that's kind of where most animals go when they die. So if like you kill a deer, it's gonna pop up in the Beast Zones.
Yeah.
And if you as a human enter the Beastlands, you will begin exhibiting animal traits that the realm associates with your personality and who you are spiritually. So like, if you show up there, you might end up leaving with like a dog's nose, or like your feet get replaced with like cat paws and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, the Beastlands will shift you to what is suited for the realms that it is. And that's the same thing with the Nine Hells. So our version of the Abbot, if he was in the Nine Hells, he would have something similar to what happened to Zariel, where his visage would become more demonic. And what makes it a little off-putting is the fact that he is for all intents and purposes, like, his visage was already crippled by the presence of Ravenloft, so he already had somewhat of an undead appearance. His wings were constantly dripping black feathers that would grow and just fall off. So something similar like that would happen to him as well, where that visage might change. Instead of it maybe being black feathers that drip, maybe they, like, burn away, but they still reform and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But for the most part, that is... Unfortunately, we don't have any more campaigns that have introduced divine beings yet. But I have a campaign that, in the lining, it's once we get done with our Curse of Strahd modified Curse of Azalea, where one of our players became the Dreadlord. Once that's played through, there is another campaign that I will run that has more divine beings, but we will get to that when we get to that. But this was a relatively shorter stream than the Strahd one, because again, we don't have much backstory on Zariel and the Abbot. We have whatever the modules have given us, and obviously I'm not going to dip into, like, fan canon too much, because people have their own canons and stuff. I'm going based off the material I used when I run the modules. Which,
I think it would be interesting to do a switch once we finish Curse of Azalea and have you analyze her.
Okay. Yeah, I'll see what I can... Yeah.
And analyze some of the other characters that you guys are going to meet in the campaign.
Kind of compare them to, like, the Curse of Strahd NPCs and kind of... Okay. Yeah, we could do something like that. But I think that honestly will be it for this. I know, like I said, relatively shorter compared to Strahd, because again, Strahd has a lot more information and he has a lot more complexity and nuance, while Zariel and the Abbot are pretty, to be honest, very straightforward characters.
Yeah, they are.
But that is not to mean anything bad. There is nothing wrong with making a character that is straightforward. Like, sometimes it's nice to not have a overly complex character that's super, like, morally gray. Like, sometimes it's easier to just be like, I see where you're coming from, but you're full of shit. And I think the Abbot and Zariel are kind of those nice little grounds of, like, you can see why Zariel is doing what she's doing, and you can see why the Abbot is doing, but you know at the end of the day what they're doing is inherently wrong. But one of them you can redeem, or simply kill them both.
Or murder.
Yeah, murder is an option. But I personally think that redeeming Zariel is the more interesting one.
Yeah.
Because Zariel, in my opinion, despite everything she has done, is someone that is worth redeeming.
She is, so compared to Strahd and the Abbot, Zariel is a being that I would say can be redeemed. The Abbot can't be redeemed, and Strahd can't be redeemed. Just given the fact that Strahd and the Abbot are both very, like, nose deep into the dark powers of Ravenloft. Like, they snorted a line of that shit, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas Zariel is still unsure about, you know, she hasn't snorted a line of Nexus off Asmodeus' ass, you know? Like, she's not completely into...
Yeah, she's doing it because she's aligned with their goals, but she's not doing it because she has fallen. It is, to me, an object of convenience.
Yeah.
Because Zariel... Like, because again, Zariel kind of wants the same... Like, Asmodeus kind of wants the same thing that Zariel wants, which is just the absolute destruction of the abyss.
Yeah.
Now, is there something more to that, especially when Asmodeus is in?
Oh,
Absolutely.
obviously.
It's
It's
the
Asmodeus, let's be
yeah,
honest.
yeah. It's the Lord. It is the Lord of Lies, and he is
The Lord
always
of the Nine fucking Hells, alright? Like,
yeah. He is always planning, and he is always scheming, and he is always lying.
mm-hmm.
Or maybe that's the ultimate lie at all. Maybe it means nothing, and he is trying to lie to everyone to keep everything moving in a direction.
Plot twist, Asmodeus is actually just a super himbo guy, and he's actually super nice.
You wish.
No, I
But
don't wish. I'm just saying that would be the plot
uh,
twist. He's just like, hey guys, I'm just here to have a good time,
yeah, everyone
Cookies and
just
cookies.
just everyone fucking fears him, but then it's just ultimately he's actually just a very chill guy.
He looks like he could kill you, is a cinnamon bun.
I fucking wish. That would be hilarious. That's the true lie. The true lie is he's actually a pretty cool guy.
Actually, pretty chill guy.
But again, I know I've said this for the umpteenth time, but yeah, I think this is a good point. I will keep kind of looking because unfortunately too, as we kind of go through some of these characters, like I think it might be best to do them like kind of in batches like this, where it's like we find some characters from like different modules that kind of can tie in together because of like either an archetype or something similar that they have in common, because a lot of these characters, like especially the NPCs or the side characters that are very much like oh, they're important to the story, but we're not going to give them, like Lulu for example. Like Lulu doesn't have a lot going on for her, so we can only speculate so much about Lulu. And like we can talk about her and bring her up and stuff, but it's like again, and I'm not expecting to have like a fucking novella about a little Hollyphant, but it's like it helps to have information and understanding the motives of stuff. And unfortunately, with like a being like Lulu, they only have one motivation: bring back Zariel. And it's like, and again, there is nothing wrong with that. But Lulu, as she is written, is a plot contrivance character, and I would argue kind of the same thing with Irina, which you can flesh her out and make her a more interesting character, obviously. But with the way, but like I said, again, we're going based off the way that she is written, that these characters are written, and a mixture of like the way I've played them up. Yeah. So what we talk about and describe, like in terms of psychology and stuff, will not apply to everyone.
Yeah. Exactly. And, so like obviously, so like the way that you play them is going to be different than the way that say I play them if I ever do a Curse of Strahd campaign or a Descent to Avernus. We'll see. But yeah, so it's going to be different. It's subjective. So like obviously you might be listening to this and be like, well, that's not my interpretation. And that's okay. You're entitled to have your own interpretation based on how you run the characters. This is just kind of like the canonical universe that we are having these characters portray and be ran.
Yeah, and again, ultimately these little like talks that we do anyway at the end of the day is just us shooting the shit about if these characters, because literally the whole concept of this is literally just if we stuck these characters in a therapy room, what would they be like?
Well, the first thing I would do if the abbot sat down, I'd be like, straight to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Straight to jail, sir.
but yeah, whenever we can find more characters that catch our interest and are worth talking about, we'll do another one of these. Like we were sitting on the Zariel thing for a while, and I kind of just threw the abbot in here because I was like, he's also a divine being that has fallen, but I feel like he's kind of like the bad ending for Zariel. Like if Zariel was not redeemed, and instead mollywops the party and commits to being the Archduchess.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you again for kind of I do enjoy doing these kind of little bit, like, because again, like, it's not serious. We're just kind of
Mhm.
shooting the shit, and you're doing something you like, which is therapy stuff,
Mhm.
therapy talk,
Yee.
and it's interesting applying. It's interesting applying like topics and stuff like that to like D&D characters, which again,
Yeah.
there's probably plenty of other characters we could be doing, but I also like, I think it works better is if we actually got to experience the characters, like if one of us got to run the characters and use our interpretation
Mhm.
as well as just communicate, and like everyone's going to perceive a character differently, and
Yeah, exactly.
that's the point and the beauty of it. It's like there might be general characteristics we can all agree on, but at the end of the day, the way I run my Zariel will be different than the way you run your Zariel, or so on and so forth. We can agree on certain
Mhm.
things, but you might add a little bit of flavor that I don't, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And that is the beauty of this hobby, as well as just storytelling.
Yeah.
We don't have to tell the same story. We can use the same actors, but just tell a different story. And
Exactly.
there is no wrong way of doing it.
Mhm.
And I honestly think that's a good point to end it.
Yeah.
I think we are going to raid out to another little. I see a group of homies doing their own version of GM talking. Eve and Undead Lore over there live, so we'll go say hi. We'll go say hi to them because they are some chill mother hubbas.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So we'll go say hi to them. Thank you again, Ray, for joining, and
Yeah.
those for dropping by even for just a moment as they continue talking D&D stuff and talking about just state of games and whatnot. Um, but I will see. Uh, we will be live Tuesday evening.
You know what? I will shout myself out.
Yeah,
So,
go ahead and shout
okay.
yourself out if you want to watch the active campaign going on, which is Curse of Azalea, a modified Curse of Strahd game where one of our previous party members, Azalea, became the Dread Lord, and Barovia is now a twisted mini version of the Nine Hells, where Ray is running it as the DM, and I am a player, a silver dragon by the name of Zach.
Mhm.
And we have all sorts of fun characters over there. But
Yeah, they're about to go fight some gnolls Tuesday, so it will be 8 p.m. Atlantic time, 7 p.m. Eastern.
yeah, and I'll hopefully see some of y'all then.
Yee.
Bye.
Bye.